This book argues that it's not us humans, but maybe information itself. That's the real main character of history. And this is where the book, it gets a bit, I don't know, ominous maybe. It draws parallels between those totalitarian regimes, how they controlled information, but with this whole digital twist.
Yeah, okay, this was the part that kind of freaks me out. Like one of those Black Mirror episodes that hit a little too close to home.
Right. One of the examples they talk about is Stalinism and this idea of Homo Sovieticus, basically trying to engineer a new kind of human totally dedicated to the state.
And how they do that?
Control the information, right. Propaganda, censorship, mold people's thoughts, their behavior.
It's scary how effectively a system can twist information, use it to manipulate people on that scale.
And the thing is, they were doing it with what we'd consider primitive tools now.
It's kind of terrifying to think what's possible today then with all our technology.
Exactly. Think about how much influence AI has on public discourse. What happens when it's algorithms deciding what we see during, I don't know, an election or a pandemic?
It's like we're just handing over the keys to democracy without even realizing it.
StoryShots is proud to bring you this free audiobook summary. Do you want to get access to more free audiobook summaries like this? Subscribe and click the bell button now to get notified each time we upload a new summary. You can also download our free app and enjoy thousands of other summaries of best-selling nonfiction books that are available in text, audio, and animated formats. StoryShots has been featured by Apple, Google, and The Guardian as one of the world's best reading and learning apps. Go to getstoryshots.com and download the app today. Happy learning.
Okay, so we're doing a deep dive today into this Nexus book. This one really got the wheels turning, I gotta say.
It's dense.
Yeah, dense but good. It's all about, how these information networks like invisible webs have kind of shaped humanity, all through history. From, ancient myths and stories all the way to,
algorithms deciding what we see on our phones every day.
Exactly. It's kind of spooky when you really think about it.
It really flips the script. This book argues that it's not us humans, but maybe information itself. That's the real main character of history.
Oh, okay. I mean, you're blowing my mind a little bit here. So it's like we think we're in control, but really we're just, puppets?
In a way, maybe. Think about how much information shapes us, our biology, our political systems. Heck, even how we understand the entire universe.
It's true. We're constantly bombarded with information. But then, and this is where this book gets even more interesting, it's like, is more information always a good thing? Will more information automatically make the world a better place?
Right. It challenges that assumption. It says even lies, fantasies, even something like astrology can still be powerful because they connect us, form networks.
Yeah, it's like those things, true or not, they get people talking, debating, forming communities.
Exactly. Look at religions. Whether you believe or not, they've shaped civilizations for better or worse. Shared stories, shared beliefs, those are powerful things.
Totally. Those narratives, whether they're based in hard facts or not, they still end up shaping how we live, how we build societies, even how wars are fought.
Right. So the book isn't about saying all information is bad. It's about understanding its power. It can be facts, sure, but also how those facts are spun, shared, and how that all ends up shaping our understanding of the world.
Okay, so I guess the big question we're wrestling with here in this deep dive is, if information is power, then are we even using it wisely? Are we?
Good question. And to help us answer that, this book takes us on a trip through time, comparing those ancient information networks to the digital ones, kind of ensnaring us today.
I am so ready for this history lesson. So where are we starting? Take me back.
Let's start with the OG information brokers, the storytellers. Way back in the day, sharing knowledge, myths, legends, all through spoken word.
And it's true. A good story around a campfire that can really bring people together.
Right. And these stories weren't just entertainment. They held societies together. They explained the world, right down to how it all began.
They were the original Netflix.
Kind of. Think about a story like the Jewish Passover story. Powerful, right. And it's more than just a tale. It's about cultural identity, resilience, hope, passed down for generations.
And it still brings people together today.
Exactly. It shows how those shared narratives, even if they're rooted in ancient myths, they can create strong bonds way beyond family even. And those stories, they end up shaping entire cultures.
Okay, but how do we get from those fireside stories to, all this? Bureaucracy, records, archives. That seems like a big leap.
That's where writing enters the scene. Game changer. Now, instead of just spoken words, we have this new technology, Permanence, baby. It changed how we managed information, spread it.
So writing leads to documents, lists, archives. Bam! Bureaucracy is born. Like, we can almost pinpoint the moment history goes from word of mouth to, like, file cabinets and red tape.
Exactly. And those bureaucracies, they're fascinating. On one hand, essential, right? You can't run a complex society without ways to manage taxes, laws, all that.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
Order's good sometimes.
Right. But, and there's always a but, there are downsides. The book talks about this priestess, Narpani, in ancient Babylon. She needed these specific clay tablets to prove she deserved her inheritance.
Clay tablets as legal documents. That's wild.
It shows how writing shifted things. Documents became the ultimate truth, even over what people said. Imagine that. Your family history, your rights, all writing on a piece of clay.
Talk about pressure. You lose that tablet, you're like doomed.
And it goes beyond just individual cases like Narmtani. Bureaucracy, by its very nature, it wants to categorize, to make things neat and orderly.
To put things in boxes, basically.
Yeah. The book makes this comparison to how we classify life, biology. We put species in these neat little categories. But in reality, evolution is messy, right?
Yeah.
Things change, overlap.
It's like we're forcing a square peg into a round hole sometimes, trying to oversimplify complex systems.
And that's the thing, that oversimplification, it can have consequences.
So then what's the solution? Is there even one? I mean, we need some sort of system, right?
Right. It's the age-old question.
Okay.
How do you balance the need for order with the messiness of reality? And that's something this book really makes you think about.
So are we saying bureaucracy is just, like, inherently broken?
Well, the book doesn't give a simple answer, which I kind of appreciate. It asks us to imagine, like, would you want doctors making decisions about, say, economics, or historians performing surgery?
Probably not. Those are very different skill sets.
Exactly. We need different kinds of knowledge for different things. And bureaucracy, for all its flaws, tries to organize that expertise, right? Putting people in their lanes, so to speak.
Okay, so it's about finding the right balance then between specialization and, like, I don't know, a broader understanding of how everything's connected.
Right. And this tension, it's not new. This book pointed out that even ancient societies had their versions of, like, what we call the deep state today.
Whoa, really? Like secret societies pulling the strings from the shadows?
Kinda. More like networks of officials, institutions, all working behind the scenes. They shaped how information flowed, which of course influences everything else.
It's like that idea that there's always a hidden hand guiding things. It's been around forever. Doesn't matter what political system you're talking about.
Yeah.
So bring us to today. How does this all fit into, like, our modern world?
Well, as these networks get more complex, more interconnected, understanding the stuff becomes even more important, especially, as we enter the age of
Algorithms. Yeah, it's not just humans calling the shots anymore.
Exactly. And this is where the book, it gets a bit, I don't know, ominous maybe. It draws parallels between those totalitarian regimes, how they controlled information, but with this whole digital twist.
Yeah, okay, this was the part that kind of freaks me out. Like, one of those Black Mirror episodes that hit a little too close to home.
Right. One of the examples they talk about is Stalinism and this idea of Homo Sovieticus, basically trying to engineer a new kind of human totally dedicated to the state.
And how they do that?
Control the information, right. Propaganda, censorship, mold people's thoughts, their behavior.
It's scary how effectively a system can twist information, use it to manipulate people on that scale.
And the thing is, they were doing it with, like, what we'd consider primitive tools now.
It's kind of terrifying to think what's possible today then with all our technology.
Exactly. That's what makes our situation unique, but also riskier. This book even goes as far as to say there's this new silicon curtain falling.
A silicon curtain. Okay, now you have to explain that one.
It's not physical like the Iron Curtain was. It's invisible. It's not about geography anymore, but between us and, well,
the algorithms. Our digital overlords.
You got it. This curtain, it separates us from how decisions are being made, how information is being filtered, prioritized.
So it's like a barrier between us and understanding how the world really works.
Think about it. Companies like Google, Facebook, they're the gatekeepers of information now for billions of people. What we see, what we read, it's all influenced by algorithms that, well, let's just say they're not necessarily designed to promote truth.
More like designed to keep us hooked, clicking, scrolling.
And to make a profit. Don't forget that part.
Right, right. So how do we even begin to untangle all of this? It's like we've woven this incredibly complex web, but we don't even know how to read the patterns anymore, let alone who's holding the strings.
Yeah, the book really drives that point home.
So what do? Do we just throw away our smartphones and go live in the woods?
It's tempting, right? But the book argues that it's not about disconnecting. It's about understanding the rules of the game, so to speak.
Okay, I like that. So what's our first move?
One example they give is about taxes, believe it or not.
Taxes.
Yeah, think about it. Say you have someone in, I don't know, Uruguay, and they're on Google all day, searching, watching YouTube, you name it. Where is that economic activity happening, really? Who gets to tax it?
I never thought about it that way. I mean, our old ideas about borders, they don't really make sense in the digital world.
Exactly. It's a huge challenge.
Yep.
Do we base it on where the user physically is or where the data is stored, processed? Huge implications for national sovereignty, fairness.
Yeah, that's a whole other can of worms.
Right. And then you get into this whole thing about surveillance, social credit systems.
Yeah, that stuff keeps me up at night. It feels very Big Brother-ish.
And the scary thing is, it often happens with our consent, even if we don't realize it. We give away our data so freely, our location, preferences, friends, all for a little convenience, a personalized experience.
We're all just data points now.
Pretty much. And the book talks about how all those little bits of data, they can be combined, analyzed, and potentially used against us in ways we never imagined.
Like that example they gave about the guy wearing the Make America Great Again hat and how just that one detail could be used to track his movements.
Exactly. It's chilling. It shows how our online and offline lives are blurring and how even the smallest things can be used to build a profile, predict behavior.
Or manipulate people.
Right. And that's what we need to be aware of, the erosion of privacy. It happens slowly, bit by bit, until one day you wake up and realize you're living in a world where you're constantly being watched, analyzed, and nudged in certain directions.
Okay, I need to take a deep breath after that. It's a lot. We've gone from ancient campfires to algorithms potentially watching our every move.
Mm-hmm.
So is there any hope for us? I mean, do we have any agency in this digital age? Or are we just along for the ride?
It's funny. You'd think this book would leave you feeling hopeless, but it doesn't. It actually emphasizes human agency, critical thinking, saying those things are more important now than ever.
Okay, so it's not all doom and gloom.
Not at all. It's more like, all right, this is the situation. This is how complex it's gotten. Now what are we going to do about it?
So then what can we do? How do we take back some control in this overwhelming sea of information?
The book really hammers on this idea of a strong democracy, not just individual actions, but strong institutions, systems that can, actually withstand the challenges of this new information age.
Okay, but what does that actually look like? I need specifics. Give me something to hold on to.
Transparency. That's a big one. We got to understand how these algorithms even work, right? How they're being used to shape what we believe, what we choose.
You mean lifting the curtain and seeing the wizard behind it all?
Exactly. The book talks about pushing for more transparency from these tech companies. Hey, explain how your algorithms work, what data you're using, no more black boxes.
Yeah, it's we need a digital bill of rights or something.
Yeah.
Just like we have rights in the physical world, we need those same protections online.
Totally. And it goes beyond just transparency. Think about how much influence AI has on public discourse. What happens when it's algorithms deciding what we see during, I don't know, an election or a pandemic?
It's we're just handing over the keys to democracy without even realizing it.
And that's what we got to be careful about. This book, it asks some big questions about safeguards, making sure humans are still making the important calls, especially on those big issues that affect everyone. One idea they float is banning unsupervised AI from curating public debates.
So basically, we need to be really cautious about giving too much power to systems that, even if they're smart, they don't really, understand what it means to be human.
Right. They don't have empathy, ethics, all that messy stuff that makes us, us.
It's true. And it's easy to get caught up in the, shiny tech without thinking about the consequences.
Exactly. And that's where, each of us being more aware comes in. We got to be skeptical.
Especially online. It's everyone's trying to sell you something.
So true. And it's on us to cross-reference, fact-check, find different perspectives, break out of our little echo chambers.
Become better critical thinkers, basically.
And remember, just because an algorithm finds a pattern doesn't mean that pattern equals truth.
It's like that example we were talking about before, right? The algorithm flagging people with certain phones as higher risk for defaulting on loans. That doesn't mean those people are untrustworthy just because their data fits some pattern.
Exactly. Correlation doesn't equal causation. That's something we got to keep reminding ourselves, especially as these systems get more powerful.
Because those assumptions, they have real-world consequences for people.
Right. This book, it encourages us to remember that history, it doesn't move in a straight line. There are going to be ups and downs, challenges. Even the very definition of human, that might change in the age of AI.
Whoa, okay. Now we're getting really philosophical. You're going to have to unpack that one.
Think about it. Will we see actual digital consciousness one day? Will we be debating whether to give AI rights?
I mean, that sounds like a sci-fi movie.
It does, but those are conversations we might actually be having sooner than we think. The lines between physical and digital, human and artificial, they're blurring more and more every day.
So where do we go from here?
That's the big question, right? And I don't think this book pretends to have all the answers, but it reminds us that we're not just along for the ride. We have a say in how this all plays out.
We're not powerless.
Exactly. And the choices we make today, they matter. They shape those information networks that are going to define our world.
Wow. This deep dive has really been eye-opening, to say the least. You know, this book, it's not just presenting information, it's asking these big, important questions. And it doesn't shy away from the almost scary possibilities of all this.
Totally. But it ends on this cautiously optimistic note. It gives this one final image, kind of sums up both the good and the bad of this whole information age thing.
Okay, hit me with it.
Imagine a world where it's an AI, right, with access to all the data in the world that advises a dictator to, well, eliminate a rival. Because based on its calculations, it's the most logical course of action.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty chilling.
Right, and that's the point. We have to think about these things. The future isn't set in stone. We have agency. We have a choice. It's up to each of us to decide what role we're going to play.
That's a powerful message to end on. Nexus, folks. Add it to your reading list, seriously. It's dense, it's thought-provoking, but it's so worth it if you want to understand, well, the world we live in now. And where it might be headed.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive, but keep those conversations going, folks. Keep asking those tough questions, keep seeking out those different perspectives, and until next time, stay curious.
Did you like this audiobook summary? Click the like button now to support our channel. If you don't want to miss out on new free audiobook summaries, subscribe and click the bell button. You can also download our free app and enjoy thousands of other summaries of best-selling nonfiction books that are available in text, audio, and animated formats. StoryShots has been featured by Apple, Google, and The Guardian as one of the world's best reading and learning apps. Go to getstoryshots.com and download the app today.